Hi. Let's talk about Romeo and Juliet. This is one of those films that's both messy and tight at the same time. The elements of the adaptation that can come off wonky in modern settings, i.e. the finger-biting, changing swords to guns, etc., are made much more endearing by the great set design, vibrant wardrobe, and some really spectacular acting. I mean, can we just take a gander at this cast? Claire Danes, Harold Perrineau, Pete Postlethwaite, Paul Rudd, Paul Sorvino, John Leguizamo, Jesse Bradford, Miriam Margolyes, and of course, and regardless of how campy the film can be at times, there's no question that this cast brought their A-game to this production.
Holy St. Francis. What a change is here.
It shall be endured.
Go to. What, goodman boy? I say shall. Go to.
Uncle, this is a shame.
Make a mutiny among my guests.
Take him bound! I beg for justice, which thou prince must give! Romeo slew Tybalt! Romeo must not live!
Them and learn them face to bear, making them silly of good courage! This is she! This is she!
But obviously we can't properly talk about the film without also talking about the brains behind the operation. Baz Luhrmann, someone I've always maintained was an international spy who made films during his downtime, is a man with a very specific eye for color, which is apparent in everything he makes. Just look at his other works, Moulin Rouge, Australia, and The Great Gatsby, a personal favorite of mine, which we can talk about in another episode if anybody cares. He combines fantastic visuals with tracks that either further enforce the character and scene, or foreshadow where we're heading. I mean, just sit and listen to the soundtrack. Every single song is a banger. It went triple platinum, which is a feat in and of itself. His production team even filled the sets with references from over 30 different Shakespeare texts, so no matter what angle he chose to shoot from on any given street or beachfront scene, you can almost always see a nod to the greater canon. The film was made for just over $14 million, and it made its budget back over 10 times over, and on top of that, it won 15 different awards, including Actress of the Year, Set Design, and Best Adapted Screenplay, to name a few. All this to say, Luhrmann doesn't fuck around. And real quick, before I talk about the points that I personally found odd or interesting, I highly recommend you check out Beyond the Red Curtain of Verona Beach. It's an essay written by Toby Malone that dives insanely in-depth on the production of the film, the breakdown of the references to other Shakespeare works, and why certain choices were made, both for the soundtrack and the set. It's a short read and really eye-opening, so I'll leave a link in the description. Now, this adaptation requires a good amount of suspension of disbelief, especially in the first 5 minutes, because a massive shootout happens in the middle of a city where a gas station is destroyed, and the authorities don't put anyone in jail. The chief just says, "Do it again and I'll kill both the heads of the family." Like, that's just something the cops are able to do in this universe. The opening dialogue about biting thumbs was swapped for some reason. In the book, it's the Capulets that start shit, but in the movie, it's the Montague boys. And even more strangely, the pairs of Abra and Abraham and Samson and Gregory were switched families. One of my favorite flavorings they added was giving both the opening shootout scene and the Tybalt challenges Romeo scene a really spaghetti western feel, both in the music pieces and the way they were shot. When Montague rolls up to the fight in his limo, he says,
Give me my longsword, Hope.
But it was actually Capulet who said that to his wife, although Lady Montague's response of,
Thou shalt not stir 1 foot to seek a foe,
is accurate to what he actually said in the story. It's a sort of dialogue condensing you'll find throughout the film. The conversation with Capulet in Paris about Juliet, Capulet and Tybalt at the party talking about Romeo, the one with Mercutio and Benvolio talking about Tybalt, and Romeo and the Friar talking about the banishment are all condensed down to their most important parts to keep the story moving at a smooth pace and to save on time. A really fun adaptation choice was the weapons, as they decided to brand different firearms as blade types. We see a sword, a longsword, a dagger, and a rapier appear just as they did in the original text. Which works pretty well when you have lines like,
"Put up your swords!
Give me my longsword, Hope.
In the story, when Tybalt kills Mercutio, he runs away because his friend's like, "Oh shit, my guy, the prince is gonna be pissed, we got to go!" But then immediately comes back like 5 minutes later to fight Romeo.
Surprise, motherfucker!
But in the movie, they decided to have some insane car chase through the city that ends with Romeo emptying the fucking clip on Tybalt in front of a church. Romeo breaks bad in the desert while the friar tries to Hannibal Smith the situation to solve things. Also, these last 2 points aren't really adaptation notes, but I wanted to point out how it was odd that Romeo's friend gets shot in the start of the film by Tybalt, and it looks like he gets shot square in the heart. You even hear him yell out in pain. But when they go to the Capulet party, not even 2 days later, he's fine. He's totally fine. And later at the beach, when the boys are hanging out before Tybalt shows up, he's just got a bandage on his arm. And lastly, this kid, yeah, his name is Quindon Tarver. He has a hell of a voice, and he was one of the reasons the soundtrack did so well. And while he was already doing music before this film, it was his renditions of When Doves Cry and Everybody's Free that put him and the soundtrack in the spotlight. And not long after, he became a member of B2K, so good on him. Okay, now that we got all the boring stuff out of the way, I know why you all really came here.
Luke, hit it!
Holy hell, do I love this movie. But I'm curious, what do you think?